Well, this looks like the perfect weekend to be inside, doesn't it? It's going to be sunny tomorrow, but still going to be cold. And one of the things you can do while you're inside is go check out the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. They've got an amazing concert this weekend. And in the studio with me this morning is the conductor who has flown into town to lead the WSO in this amazing concert of Chopin, Beethoven, and Górecki as well. His name is Daniel Raiskin, and I welcome him to the studio this morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Pleasure to have you here this morning. I
Thank
wish
you.
I could have welcomed you with better weather, but it's Winnipeg, so you never know what you're going to get. But
It's my third visit to Winnipeg, and the previous two were in February, and that is really beautiful.
oh, so this is beautiful weather.
Great.
It's
That's
gorgeous out.
yeah.
Well, again, welcome to you've been to Winnipeg a few times, and welcome to Classic 107. A pleasure to have you here for the first time. So, tell us a little bit about you, about your conducting career, how you got into it, where you're at these days.
Well, I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and into a family of a musician and a musicologist, and it was maybe inevitable that age of 6 I would be given violin into my hands, and this is what I started, like many kids do. I played violin, I studied viola, and when I went to college, I met a fantastic conducting teacher who really infected me with the idea of conducting, and once this bacteria gets into your veins,
Bacteria.
I call it this because once you feel it, you can really meta, you can really form the sound with your hands, with your mimic, with your posture, or if you have any, at the end of the day, conductor is the only person on stage who doesn't produce sound. So there must be something to this mystery. And once you have it, you're like a magician. It's a little bit of a shaman art, I say. So
interesting.
It's really great. And I moved away from crumbling Soviet Union. Had a chance to settle in Amsterdam when I was very young, 20. I had a career as a violist. This is what I played, a successful career. And then I pursued my conducting studies in various master classes. Had my viola career put on hold, and went into conducting full time, and I was music director of several orchestras in Europe and principal guest conductor, and travel extensively around the world, which at the end once brought me to Winnipeg 2 years ago, and then I came there a second time. This is my third visit, and it's wonderful to be here with this great orchestra, and in the meanwhile, some really good friends.
I'm going to talk about the concert in a second, but tell me about when you were growing up. Who are some of your sort of conductor inspirations, other than your teachers, of course? But
I grew up in the last years of this legendary conductor Evgeny Mravinsky, who was music director of St. Petersburg Leningrad Philharmonic, legendary Leningrad Philharmonic, for over 50 years. This is how it used to be. Conductors were with orchestras for life, or for
until they wanted to leave.
Century.
Yeah.
And this is how you really could build legacy. You could put a stamp, your personality into ensemble. And I was lucky as a 15-year-old boy, young student, to go to his concerts and to see he was already sitting on a bass stool. He was in his 80s and moved very little, but what the orchestra did, it was overwhelming. And as a student, we had opportunity to start seeing the opening of the Soviet Union into the world. So the American orchestras were coming in. I remember Mahler 7 with Mazel and Pittsburgh Symphony for the first time in my life, and I told myself, you are going to conduct this one time, and I did, and many times, of course, in the meanwhile. But a year ago, I had my last concert after 12 years. Music director tenure with my German orchestra, and it was Mahler 7 on the program. So when I think about this bridge, from being a 14, 15 years old teenager, and then, saying goodbye to the orchestra you spent so long time with, it's a good course. And there were many more. I remember concerts with Bernstein, also playing under him once in a World Youth Orchestra as a violist. He was already quite old, and many great Russian conductors, and then there were coming more German orchestras and French orchestras, and we were suddenly exposed to so many different ways of being an orchestra, making music, symphony music, because it was a Russian orchestral culture altogether, and suddenly it could be different. It was very enriching,
So what are some of the challenges? I know that at the moment you've got 3 orchestras that you work with, 3 orchestras.
Yeah.
What are the and then coming to guest with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, and what are the challenges of every time you go and greet an orchestra to get to know them, and what do you try to express to them?
Orchestras are like people, you know, they're living organisms. They're comprised of people, and they have strong personalities, very well trained, and small orchestra is maybe easier to handle because you have maybe only 15, 16, 20 of these personalities. Then you have orchestras that are more than 100, and then you have the middle-sized orchestra like Winnipeg Symphony with 70 musicians. I always try to get a little bit behind the history and the present of the orchestra by, you know, seeing who were the music directors, who are the present one, what is played a week ago, what is played now, what's the size of the orchestra, are there going to be extra players, you know, because the more of them you have, the more different you work with the ensemble, which is really playing often together. If there are recordings on the market recent of the ensemble, you would like to hear this to see what kind of sound aesthetic they have. This is very important, and then, you know, it's all about enabling musicians to give their best. You never can make them play, but you should always try to make them want to give their best. And as a conductor, I always see myself as an enabler, you know, in both drawing their attention to what's actually in the score, but also really make them feel that this is one-at-a-time opportunity. Every concert, every rehearsal is something to remember. It must be an experience for the orchestra and conductor during this process, if it is to become an experience and sometimes life-changing experience for the audience. Routine has never place in this relationship, and in that respect, it was wonderful to meet Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. You know, some of the orchestras you meet, you just dive into music, and 15 minutes into that, you feel you have been here before, or how is it possible? You know, you feel so at ease and so understood, and it's a rare case, and I cherish it very much here.
Well, we're happy to have you back again.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the concert this weekend. I wanted to mention I'm in the studio with Daniel Raiskin, conductor Daniel Raiskin. He is in town to conduct the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, and tomorrow night's and Saturday's concert as well. They're doing, we'll talk about the Chopin in a minute. They're also doing Beethoven. Let's start with Górecki, Symphony of Sorrowful Song. It's first of all, I mean, it's amazing to me that when it first came out, I remember when it came out, the CD sold like a million copies, which is totally unheard of,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Why was it, and why do you think it is such an important work?
It's a complex question. I'll try to make a quick answer. I had a chance to meet Górecki myself when I was music director in Poland in a lodge with the Rubinstein Orchestra. A year before he died in 2010, I performed the symphony there too, and he came over during the rehearsals and the concert, and I met a man of such incredible simplicity and in a good sense, and such spirituality, and at the same time so accessible and so uncomplicated. And this is how his music is. And written in 1976, in the times where the modernistic, very complex, very intellectual music was composed. You were talking Boulez, Stockhausen, Ligeti. All these ultra-modern pieces, you know, Darmstadt School and Donau-Eschingen festivals, and he composed music that is simple, accessible, and simply beautiful. You know, all of us are longing for this eternal beauty, and it took a while before it was really received as it was in 91. I mean, 15 years later it was recorded, and it really struck a chord with the audiences, because this longing for simplicity, beauty, accessibility, comforting. Even so, the symphony is about some of the most horrible things we as humans committed to each other. It is a light of hope. It's a sense of not giving up of ourselves that this music gives. And he told me myself that even so, this is largely inspired by his visit as a 12-year-old boy on a class trip to Auschwitz shortly after it was liberated in 1945 left a lasting mark and impression on him. And after that, the evil of communist oppression during the communist rule in Poland, where his family was deprived of any rights, their passports were withdrawn. His music wouldn't be played because religion and expression of religion freedom was not allowed. He still always believed that this initial seed of purity and innocence, no matter how evil we become in the course of our life, is always there. And his music, he said, is aimed at nourishing this pure beginnings so that they will at the end combat our evil.
And that's, I mean, it's even happening today too, right? So it's, even though it was written many years ago and it's still relevant and current today.
Like any great art, this music is becoming more and more relevant today because it offers a tool of self-reflection. You know, any human being who is not asking questions, and especially not asking questions about himself, who is afraid to look regularly into the mirror and ask himself, what would have I done in this or that situation? What am I doing? What is my position on that? You know, is becoming complicit in whatever evil is around us. And it's the moment when we'll learn to feel others' pain as ours and battle it, then the world will become a better place.
Empathy.
Yes.
Empathy.
Simple. Absolutely.
Wow. This is. I didn't realize that you had to have a PhD in philosophy and psychology to be a conductor as well.
No, you just need to open up to beautiful music and be a human being, a mensch.
Yeah.
You know, it's
no, it's beautiful.
It's great.
So that's the sort of one of the centerpieces. But also, I mean, Natasha Peremsky is going to be performing the Chopin Piano Concerto No. 2 as well, which would be amazing. She's been in the studio before. Wonderful performer in person as well.
I haven't met her.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Also, we have the same background. She's from Russia. She's from Moscow. I'm from St. Petersburg. She left very young. I was a little older when I left, but she grew up and studied here in North America, in the States. My studies and large influence came from from Europe. I graduated from a German Academy of Music with a wonderful American violist, Kim Kashkashian, who is in the meanwhile a great friend. She's professor in Boston, and also others as conductors. And this music by 18-year-old Chopin, up to his ears in love with a girl which would not return his feelings, and this incredible second movement of this concerto.
Now we've all felt that before.
Sorry?
We've all felt that.
But not everyone is able to write music of that beauty and caliber and that passion about these feelings.
Absolutely.
And it has to be played as capricious woman, you know. This concerto is all about this incredible freedom and rubato, and it's one of the harder things to accompany, you know, because the orchestra's role outside a couple of tutti, you know, is really accompanying and comforting the soloist. But to do that in a natural way and allowing everything to this capricious woman, you know, to express herself in the concerto is difficult, and it's a challenge for the orchestra and conductor likewise.
To be able to hold back just a little bit and just sort of...
Yes, but also always be there and anticipate just ahead what might happen, you know. This is... and then this slow movement offers moments of such incredible beauty. And this is also a wonderful parallel between some things don't have to be complicated to be so accessible and so beautiful, because we all like beautiful things, like we all like beautiful food, you know, good food. And I'm never tired to make parallels between good food and good music, because there is fast food and cheap entertainment. There's great food and great music, like great art, you know. And we are bombarded with information about how bad it is to eat fast food and drink over the sweet beverages for our health. It's even worse to consume bad entertainment and cheap entertainment for our souls. And when we learn that, the music, which we call classical, and that scares away everyone, will become a bigger part of our life. Also because classical music is something from pre-medieval times, you know, we're talking 1200 until nowadays, which is composed today. So the spectrum and the breadth of what is on offer is like everything, you know, and so, and everyone can find something there for himself or her.
Well, perfect opportunity this weekend to get healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Spirit,
You have to nourish your soul,
the mind, the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we just got a minute or so left. I'm in the studio with conductor Daniel Raiskin. He's going to be conducting the WSO this weekend for the Chopin and the Górecki. And I'm going to play a little movement from this Beethoven piece. You want to quickly introduce it?
Well, it's the
Creatures of
Prometheus. That's
Yes.
the gift of fire and civilization to us, prohibited by Olympus gods, but he took charge and had courage to bring this to us, and that enlightenment what changed the whole perspective.
And this is the piece that they'll be the third piece they'll be playing. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, we're looking for a conductor here in Winnipeg. So maybe you'll come back again.
You never know.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you, Daniel Raiskin. So here is Beethoven, The Creatures of Prometheus. I'm going to play the overture with Kent Nagano and the Montreal Symphony Orchestra.